Hey there. So, when you really get deep into a subject like you have in your field, things can get pretty complex. And sometimes you need a whole new way of looking at looking at how we even understand things.
Right.
So today we're diving into some pretty thought-provoking stuff, some Zen wisdom, actually.
Ah, Zen. Always a good way to shake things up.
Exactly. We'll be exploring a collection of letters called Only Don't Know, written by a Zen master named Sahn. And we're going to see what kind of insights we can pull out, especially for someone like you who's already mastered so much in your own area.
What makes this collection really interesting is that it's not like a textbook or formal set of teachings. These are personal letters back and forth between Song and his students. So we get to see their questions, their struggles, even their doubts, and how he guides them.
And for you, coming from, a place of already having deep knowledge in your field, we're not trying to convert you to Zen or anything.
No, no, not at all.
It's more about taking these exchanges, these kind of raw moments of insight, and seeing if we can glean something valuable about understanding itself, about the role of practice, and maybe even about how our own expertise can sometimes, you know, create its own blind spots.
Absolutely. It's easy to get stuck in our own ways of thinking when we've spent years becoming an expert.
So let's jump right into one of Sung San's core teachings, which is, and this might sound a little paradoxical at first, only don't know.
Don't know. For someone who's dedicated their life to knowing a lot, that might seem a bit counterintuitive.
Right. It sounds strange.
But it's not about like rejecting knowledge or becoming intentionally ignorant. It's more about a state of mind.
A state of mind.
Yeah, one that's like before thinking, before we apply all our frameworks and labels and judgments to things, it's about getting back to that raw, open awareness.
So like a beginner's mind, but on a deeper level.
Yeah, you could say that. It's about accessing that kind of pure potentiality before we layer on all our preconceived notions.
Okay, I think I'm starting to get it. The book's intro has this really interesting idea. They say this don't know state can actually be a form of like pure clarity, almost like a heightened awareness that's even more fundamental than, intellectual or technical mastery.
It's about getting to the essence of things.
Have you ever had those moments in your work where like a solution just kind of popped into your head?
Like out of nowhere.
Yeah, almost before you'd even consciously thought about the problem.
Oh, absolutely. It's like those aha moments.
Exactly. Could those be glimpses of that don't know mind?
Maybe, maybe. It's that intuition, that spark of insight that comes when we let go of trying to force a solution.
I like that. Sahn has this great example about a doctor, a really skilled doctor. And this doctor thinks to themselves, I am a great doctor.
Okay.
And Sahn suggests that, that this thought, this self-identification as a great doctor, can actually become a kind of barrier.
A barrier.
Yeah, like it limits the doctor's ability to fully see the patient, to see their unique situation without any preconceptions.
Ah, I see what you mean. It's like that expertise becomes a filter.
Exactly. And I'm wondering, for you as someone who's, reached such a high level in your field, is there ever a risk that your own deep understanding, your mastery, could sometimes lead you to, I don't know, maybe overlook something new or unexpected?
Hmm. That's a really interesting question. I think, sometimes when you're so deep in a subject, it's easy to assume you've seen it all, but that's precisely when you need to be most open to being surprised.
Right. To approaching things with that don't know mind.
Exactly. It's about staying humble, recognizing that there's always more to learn.
Now, this is where things get really intriguing.
Okay.
So Seung San describes this don't know mind as something that can actually cut through our thinking.
Cut through our thinking.
Yeah, like it goes beyond our usual thought processes and leads to a state where, there's no I, no words, just a kind of oneness with everything.
Oh, like a state of pure being.
Exactly. It's often called nothing mind, or the primary point.
Sounds very Zen.
It is. And here's the thing. It's not just about, spacing out or
Right.
becoming a blank slate.
Right.
This nothing mind, this state of open awareness, it's actually the foundation for something more. It can be transformed into what's called big love mind.
Big love mind. Okay, now we're getting somewhere.
And that means acting for the benefit of everyone, but without any ego or personal agenda getting in the way.
So like pure selfless action.
Precisely. And I wonder, thinking about your own work, could this be applied to, like, using your expertise with a complete focus on the best possible outcome, without any need for recognition or personal gain?
That's a powerful idea. It's like channeling your expertise into something bigger than yourself.
So right from the start, Song San is setting up this contrast between, the limits of even really sophisticated intellectual understanding and this more direct experiential state of don't know.
It's not about rejecting knowledge, but going beyond it.
Exactly. And this tension between understanding and experiencing is really brought to life in a letter from one of his students, a woman named Marge.
What was Marge's story?
Well, she was writing to Sahn because she was worried about his health. He had a heart condition and diabetes.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and she even shared her own family's experiences with diabetes.
Yeah.
But what's fascinating is San's response. He thanks her for her concern, but then he talks about how he was using meditation to help with his healing and how the doctors were really intrigued by this.
Interesting.
And get this, through meditation, his heart problem, which usually took months to heal, cleared up in just a week.
A week?
Yeah, the doctors were amazed.
Wow.
He even shared some Zen teachings with them.
That's great.
But here's the key part for our discussion.
Okay.
He talks about this man in the bed next to him in the hospital.
Okay.
This man had what everyone would consider a good life, like all the external things you'd think would make someone happy, yet he was suffering. And he kept saying his life amounted to nothing.
Nothing.
Yeah. And Seung San's point is that even this intellectual understanding of nothingness, like grasping the concept of emptiness, didn't actually alleviate the man's suffering.
So there's a difference between understanding something intellectually and actually experiencing it.
Exactly. And that seems to be a core message here, that even having a brilliant intellectual grasp of something isn't always enough. Sometimes it takes a more direct, unfiltered experience to really shift things.
Like that don't know mind.
Yeah, like dropping the frameworks and just being present with what is.
I see.
And this challenge to like fixed ways of thinking, even within a system of expertise, it comes up again in a really interesting exchange between Seung Sahn and a student named Steve.
Steve.
Yes, Steve was in prison at the time.
Oh, wow.
And he was wrestling with some really big questions like, the nature of enlightenment, the possibility of saving all beings.
Those are huge questions.
They are. And Seung San's response gets right to the heart of the matter. He says that our fixed ideas and attachments, those are the root of our problems.
Our attachments cause problems.
Yeah, he even says, originally there is nothing. If you make something, you have something.
So it's the act of creating those fixed ideas, those attachments that leads to suffering.
I think so. And I'm curious, from your perspective, does this resonate with how things work in your field? Like, do you ever see how clinging to certain paradigms or established ways of thinking can sometimes prevent breakthroughs or make it hard to adopt new perspectives?
Absolutely. In any field, there's a danger of getting too attached to the way things have always been done.
Yeah.
And that can stifle innovation and creativity.
So it's about finding that balance between, respecting what's already known and being willing to let go and see things anew.
Exactly. It's that don't know mind again, allowing for the possibility of something new to emerge.
Then Seung Sahn goes on to talk about this idea of the true self.
Okay.
He says it has no birth and no death, unlike our physical bodies.
So it's like a deeper level of being beyond our physical existence.
Exactly. And it makes me think about how, even in your area of expertise, there might be those underlying principles, those core truths that remain constant, even as the applications or theories change over time.
It's like the essence of a thing, the thing that makes it what it is, regardless of how it appears on the surface.
Seung Sahn even uses this analogy of water, ice, and steam.
Water, ice, and steam.
Yeah, he points out that they're all the same fundamental element, H2O, just in different forms.
I see. So it's about recognizing the underlying unity despite the different appearances.
Exactly. And I'm wondering, within your own deep understanding of your field, do you see those kinds of core principles, those essential truths that manifest in different ways, maybe even in ways that seem contradictory at first glance?
That's a thought-provoking question. I'd say, yeah, there are definitely those foundational concepts that seem to pop up in unexpected places, wearing different masks, so to speak.
It's almost like seeing the same pattern repeating itself, but with variations.
Exactly. And maybe that don't know mind helps us to see those connections, those underlying patterns more clearly.
This ability to see beyond the surface level, to see the essence of things,
Yeah.
that seems to be a key outcome of practice, which is another big theme in Seung San's letters.
Practice.
Yeah, and it's not just about rote repetition.
Right.
It's about cultivating that don't know mind, that open awareness through deliberate effort.
Makes sense.
There's this letter from a student who describes feeling free, but also feeling afraid of that freedom.
Afraid of freedom. That's interesting.
Yeah, it's like this paradox that the thing we often strive for, this sense of liberation, can actually be unsettling when we actually encounter it.
It can be disorienting to let go of those familiar structures.
Exactly. And Seung San's response is so insightful. He says, your idea of freedom has no direction. Why do you want freedom? What is the purpose of freedom?
So it's not just about being free from something, but being free for something.
Yeah, and I think that applies to expertise too. Like having deep knowledge and skill, that's great. But without a clear sense of purpose, without a grounding in values, it can be, I don't know, kind of aimless.
It's like having a powerful tool, but not knowing what to build with it.
Exactly. For you, having achieved such a high level of mastery, what are those guiding principles? What's the purpose, the driving force behind your expertise?
That's a great question. I think for me, it's always been about using my knowledge to help others, to make a positive impact on the world.
That's a beautiful purpose.
Thank you.
And it seems like for Seung San, true freedom comes from, well, from killing the I.
Killing the eye sounds a bit intense.
It does, right? But he's talking about moving beyond ego-driven pursuits, finding a more profound, selfless reason for using our abilities.
So it's about transcending the self, not annihilating it.
I think that's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
And this leads us to another key concept, just now mind.
Just now mind. Okay, what's that?
Seung San gives a lot of everyday examples of this in his letters.
Mm-hmm.
Like, imagine being completely absorbed in a movie
Okay.
or fully focused on driving a car.
Got it.
It's about being totally present, totally in the moment, without your mind wandering off to past worries or future plans.
So it's about being fully engaged with whatever you're doing.
Exactly. And I think, sometimes our expertise can actually pull us out of that just now mind.
How so?
Well, because we're so used to analyzing, categorizing, comparing everything to what we already know.
We see the present through the lens of the past.
Right. And in doing that, we might miss the unique details, the fresh perspective that the present moment offers.
So it's about quieting the mind, letting go of those analytical filters, and just experiencing things directly.
There's this great story Seung San tells about when he was a kid. He cut his leg pretty badly,
Ouch.
but he didn't feel any pain at first. It wasn't until he actually looked down and saw what had happened that the pain kicked in.
Wow, that's wild.
And he uses this to illustrate how our attention, our mental interpretation of events, can actually shape our experience. Like sometimes it's the very act of focusing on something, of analyzing it, that creates or amplifies the problem.
So sometimes overthinking things can make them worse.
Exactly. And I wonder, in your work, do you ever see how, approaching something with too much analysis, with all your expert knowledge, might actually make it more complex than it needs to be?
I think that's a real danger in any field, especially when you're dealing with complex systems. It's easy to get lost in the details and miss the bigger picture.
And maybe that don't know mind, that openness to just seeing things as they are, it can help us cut through that complexity.
Absolutely. It's about stepping back and letting the situation speak for itself.
Another interesting idea that comes up in these letters is the notion of the crazy mind.
Crazy mind.
Yeah, and it's not about like clinical insanity or anything.
Yeah.
Seung San's talking about how, when we're strongly attached to something, like a fixed idea, a certain way of doing things, we can start to act in ways that are, well, kind of irrational.
Like we're trapped in a loop.
Exactly. And he says this applies to adults too, even experts. Like we can get so attached to our theories, our methodologies, our identities as experts, that we become blind to anything that challenges those beliefs.
So our expertise can become a kind of prison.
In a way, yes. And he points out that a mind that's clear like space is inherently sane.
It's about letting go of those rigid attachments.
Right. And this ties into another theme in the letters, this discussion about right and wrong.
Ethics.
Yeah. In one exchange, Seung San talks about how important it is to not make this strong sense of I, my, me, this self-centered perspective, because that's the root of judgment and conflict.
So it's about moving beyond that ego-driven sense of self.
Exactly. And he suggests that a clear like space mind can see both good and bad without getting attached to those judgments. And from that place of clarity, we can act in ways that are truly helpful, what's called bodhisattva mind.
A mind dedicated to the well-being of all.
Exactly. And I think that's a powerful idea for anyone who's reached a high level of expertise to use their knowledge and skills not for personal gain, but for the benefit of others.
It's about aligning your expertise with a higher purpose.
All of this leads to, I think, a really fascinating point. It's the inherent challenge in teaching someone who already knows a lot, even if what you're trying to teach them is about, not knowing.
Right.
There's a story in the book about a Zen master and a student who says, I only teach about not knowing, and I use knowing to end knowing.
Okay, so he's trying to be very zen.
He is.
Yeah.
And the master's response, he hits the student 30 times.
Whoa, that escalated quickly.
It did. But it was to cut through the student's intellectualization, to shock him out of his conceptual understanding of not knowing.
Ah, so even expertise in not knowing can become a barrier.
Exactly. And it makes me wonder if our expertise, even in something like philosophy or spirituality, can sometimes prevent us from truly grasping those fundamental truths that lie beyond intellectual comprehension.
It's like we get so caught up in the map that we forget about the actual territory.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into Sahn's letters, we've covered a lot of ground. We've talked about the limits of relying solely on our intellect, the importance of being present in the just now moment, the need to question our fixed beliefs, and the idea that real understanding might actually lie beyond our conscious analysis in that state of don't know.
It's been a really thought-provoking conversation.
It has. And for you, as an expert in your own right, maybe the key takeaway is this. These ideas, they're not meant to diminish your hard-earned knowledge.
Right.
They're more like an invitation to see your expertise with fresh eyes, to stay open to new possibilities, to approach challenges with a mind that's both knowledgeable and receptive.
It's about balancing expertise with humility and a willingness to learn.
Exactly. And so, here's a final thought for you to ponder.
Okay.
How could you apply this principle of don't know in your own work? Not to discard your expertise, but maybe to spark new ideas, to find more creative solutions, to push the boundaries of what's possible.
That's a great challenge. It's about finding that beginner's mind again, even within the context of mastery.
Precisely.
Mm.
Could there be a deeper level of insight waiting to be discovered when you, just for a moment, set aside what you think you already know?
That's a question worth exploring. And if you're interested in diving deeper into these ideas, I highly recommend checking out Only Don't Know Yourself.
It's a fascinating read. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive, tailored for someone with your unique perspective and understanding. Until next time.